Hey everyone, I am Tribal Instincts, and I have been waiting for Skyworld to come out since long before the Vive even launched. It came out last week. Was it worth the wait? So Skyworld was first teased back in 2015, and I didn't know exactly what the game was going to be in its final form. It seemed like it could be a kind of strategy god game type thing, so it excited me a lot. I love that genre. It turns out over the time, like I learned a little bit more, that it wasn't going to be that. It was just going to be more of a strategy turn-based type game, which is okay. I like those as well. Not as excited for it once I found out some of those details, but still, I was very anxious for it because the graphics looked amazing, and we need a good RTS. We need a good turn-based strategy or real-time strategy, whatever it is. There is a real lack of that in the Vive. So what did we actually get? Well, we got a turn-based strategy game in the main map, which, to set the scene for you, have about a table, a circular table that's about 10 feet in diameter, and in some maps you have about 4 feet of height just for the visuals. I didn't see really any strategy element to the height yet. But you have a table in front of you that is showing you your world, and you have a tile-based system where you expand your city, your empire out, using your general to move around, and then you capture places to add buildings. Those buildings generate resources. Those resources are then used, obviously, to buy more troops and upgrade buildings, and typical, turn-based strategy type elements to that. Now, once you get into a combat situation, the table flips all the way over, which I thought it was really cool at first, and then after a while, it just kind of got. Well, I mean, it kind of messes with your stomach a little bit because your world, whenever you're up close to it, it just kind of rotates over, and that's a little bit disorienting, but still kind of cool. I still don't know exactly how I feel about that. But anyway, once you go into those combat elements again, the table rotates over, and you have a kind of a zoomed-in view of a battlefield. Okay, it seems like it's primarily the same battlefield, just a little bit of changes in terms of the general structure of where the watchtowers are in the map. So once you're there, you have a very simplistic real-time strategy element. You have a set number of magic power that expands over time, and once you have a certain amount, you're able to summon troops of variant cost. So for example, you have a knight, which costs 5. You put it on the board, and the way that... I'm not a fan of the way that they actually executed the RTS elements of this because there's not a whole lot of control. You have a little bit less than half of the entire diameter of the play area where you're able to just point and place a troop, and then you have a line that goes out to kind of indicate where they're going to travel, and after that they're kind of on their own, which I don't think I really like that, to be honest, because I felt really out of control at times, and it was just sort of waiting. And in some cases, the troops do things that you don't want them to do, like chasing a ram all the way back, whenever you could have just summoned a new one to take care of it. So anyway, I have a lot of mixed feelings about how they play that out. But anyway, again, just to set the scene, you have roughly half of the board where you're able to place troops, and then those troops go forth and attempt to take out the enemy watchtowers, and then finally, hopefully, to take out the enemy base, while they are spawning troops that are fighting you as well. You also have some magical abilities that you're able to summon, so in addition to troops, you can also throw fireballs down or give your troops a charge so that they move faster. There's flying enemies, there's walking enemies, there's some variety there, but really... Well, anyway, I'll get on to how I feel about that a little bit later. All right, now flipping the table back to the main map, we have some things to talk about here. So for one, let's talk about their tutorial implementation. Sadly, I didn't see a skip option for that tutorial, and it was a little bit obnoxious. There's 2 parts that I really don't like about it. One, it just took a while to get through it. Some of the basic things, it just yeah, okay, move on. It didn't seem like there was a way to skip. Maybe I just missed it. And also, some of the things that are not very obvious, the tutorial didn't do a great job of explaining some of these things. So not only did the tutorial kind of drag on and not give you a good way of skipping past it, some of the things weren't even really explained properly, and I really wish that they had just maybe had a bullet-pointed list of the things. Here is what you need to know. All right, you good? Can we skip this? Cool, move on. But as it is, the tutorial took me 20 minutes just to click through the buttons, and I really didn't like that. I hate tutorials that kind of force me through it. All right, my personal gripe aside, once you actually get into the main campaign, there are some strengths here. Now, I'm typically not actually a fan of turn-based strategy games. I'm just not. There haven't been really too many that have really piqued my interest. There have been a few tactics style gameplay that I've enjoyed, but for the most part, I don't really enjoy the turn-based. This one has some things that I did like about it. You have, what was it, 4 or 5 different resource types. Each of those is represented by a building that you're placing down. Some spots where you place them, they give bonuses to that resource. And at the end of every turn, you get a certain number of resources based off of how many buildings you have. You also have a net drain to your food resource, and that is based off of how many workers that you have. So there are some balancing elements that you have there. In addition, they did some pretty cool things with how visually, how you manage some of the knobs that you have to tune it. For example, how much you tax your workers. Like if you lower the tax or remove the tax, they get happier, which makes more workers. Or if you give them more food, they then make more workers still. So you have some levers that you're able to move there. And okay, that's okay. Nothing really groundbreaking there. But what was cool was how you're able to flip the table over to go into a castle view, and then you have some knobs to change how those settings are. In addition, you also have a couple other menus that you're able to access by, again, flipping the table over to where you see a nice 3D representation of, I think it was a laboratory, an armory. So you're able to research more troops, you're able to upgrade those troops, and all that's done in a nice, comfortable VR setting where you're able to see some just interesting visuals. So I do like the way that they gave us a little bit of eye candy whenever you're just changing those settings that are typically kind of monotonous. Now on the flip side of that, while I say I like that, it also got a little bit tedious to have to go through and do all that, because there's, a animation, it takes a few seconds. It's not long, but whenever you're just trying to make a bunch of quick changes, waiting for the thing to rotate, and then going to the next one, waiting for the thing to rotate, I don't know, from after turn, it added up to minutes of me just kind of sitting there waiting for the table to flip. So, I don't know, I have really mixed feelings about this one. All right, so visual elements aside, and now that you kind of got an idea of kind of what you're doing in the main board, how did I feel about it? So it's not bad. I wouldn't say it's amazing. The overall map seems kind of like a means to an end, because I want to get in and I want to do the real-time stuff, and I do want to progress it and conquer more. But it seemed like I was kind of just like working whenever I was going through the main map, which it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of gameplay that I enjoyed. It was just it was just a balancing level, okay? It was just a way of adding some resources here so that one goes up, and then reducing it, and then using those resources to improve other things, which I know that's kind of a general idea for strategy games, but this one, it felt more like work than it did feel like a game that I was enjoying. Another quick call out for, one of the ways that they actually helped with that feeling was I really liked how they did the menu system for a lot of the things that you had on the map. You actually had a palette for your 4 different types of interaction. So you had your resources that just showed your general levels. And you could place that wherever you want. You could also take your building level, put it somewhere else, and then another palette for how you actually change your castle settings. So those settings that I talked about, as well as a button that you could press to turn the game. So I liked the way they did those things. It did help. In some cases, it kind of got in the way from me seeing everything. So, I kind of had to put everything up. But still, I do enjoy that element of it. I liked that I was able to move things around and just sort of place it to my liking. All right, so let's now talk about that combat situation. Whenever the table flips back over and you have that map view in front of you, how did I feel about this thing? So, for the most part, I actually did like it. I did enjoy the feeling of it. I liked being able to see the troops. I liked being able to rotate the table and just sort of have this overview, this general's view of the board. I liked that a lot, but it fell short with how I did not feel in control of my battle. You're able to place your troops, okay? So there's some element of where you put your troops in, watching for whenever the enemy puts theirs. So there's that to it. But then after you place your troops, you're just stuck. You're waiting for your mana to rise back up so you can place more troops, and you're just sort of watching your guys hopefully do what you want. But in a lot of cases, they're just out of your control at that point, which I get it. I understand kind of where they were going with that. You're just sort of the one that's telling troops where to go at first, and then after that the battle's underway, and there's you kind of lose your control. But I don't like that. Okay, I wanted to be able to give my troops new orders to continue an attack or to do other things, to hold. For crying out loud, I wanted to be able to tell my troops, sit there and wait, okay? Don't move forward, wait for them to attack you. There are some elements to typical strategy games of, let's just say turtling, putting your troops next to your guard towers and waiting for your troops to come to you. Those elements, I understand how the balance could be completely shifted if I was able to have that ability, but nonetheless, it felt out of my control, and it wasn't satisfying. in a sense that like I felt like I was having some really good strategy to this. It was just sort of, cool, I placed some troops there and they were doing some things and I kind of won. In addition, like, maybe this changes later on in the game. However, there didn't seem to be a whole lot of like true strategy in terms of how you place your troops. After a while, I found out that my knights, which is a single unit that's pretty expensive, it costs 5, where you have where other troops are cost 1 or 2, and I found out that if I just place one of those guys, like they can wipe out entire armies and not even take a scratch. So place those with some of the air units, and that's really the only strategy that you need. You need some of those, and you need some air units to take out other air units, some archers, but there wasn't any real deep strategy to this, which I was really hoping for in this title. All right, now lastly, this is a point that I really don't enjoy having to talk about because it's really just like a fundamental flaw of VR right now in terms of like the headset itself, is that a couple hours of a game where you're just sitting still, for me, it gets a little bit uncomfortable. The weight of the Vive, it does weigh on you. Now, yes, okay, the Rift might not have that big of an issue on this one, so maybe this one would actually be a better title for a Rift. It gets uncomfortable after a couple hours. Now, most VR games, I'm actually completely okay playing with the Vive for hours on end because it has me moving around, it has the Vive shifting, it's, you know, I'm looking up, I'm looking down, I'm moving all around, and that kind of like relieves some of the pressure, but this one having the same pressure in the exact same point for hours, not great. And this title, like, there's really no reason to move around, and that is a serious problem. I didn't find myself able to really play this for an extended period the way that a lot of strategy games really draw me into. And for this game in particular, that is a problem because the turn-based concept of this makes it to where you're sitting for a while, right? A lot of the actions, they take a while for you to get through it. Now that leads me to the multiplayer. There was a multiplayer setting, but it all seemed grayed out, so I'm not quite sure what I was doing wrong there. But nonetheless, I realized that there is no way I'm playing this game in multiplayer right now. So sitting and just managing my own castle is tedious enough. Sitting there then waiting for my opponent to manage their castle, no, not doing it. Okay, this is not something that I enjoyed enough to sit there and wait for, you know, an extra, you know, even a minute or 2 minutes for them to make their decisions and for the turn to roll back on my side. So there are some issues with this game. For one, the gameplay was a solid meh plus. Okay, so it was fun, but it wasn't like really deeply enthralling. And two, specifically the real-time strategy element of it just felt flat, and I didn't feel like it was something that I would actually really enjoy playing for a long time. It just sort of like, it was just something that I just needed to kind of get through instead of a cool thing that I was really enjoying. So for me personally, honestly, and this is really, really like the first time I've ever even thought that anything like this would be needed, but this game needs to be on my phone, okay? I loved the visuals, don't get me wrong, it was cool, I like seeing it, but after an hour, I didn't really care for it anymore. It was just like, come on, let's move the game a little bit faster. On a phone, this seems like this would be perfect for me to play while I'm on a bus or just move it around. There didn't seem to be anything in this game that really needed VR to make it special. They didn't use anything behind me. They didn't really make it so that I like that VR was really adding anything to the game. It was kind of cool, but it seemed more of a gimmick for this particular title. And if you guys know any of my other videos, you know I love VR. This game didn't do any of those things that really makes VR special. So I'm sorry, but this game, I would love for it to come out on a flat screen. Maybe I would play it more then, or on my phone. This seems like a perfect game for a mobile. But for now, I can't recommend this game, despite me wanting it desperately for a year. I feel like I am disappointed by this one, and especially for what was it, the $30 or $40 that I paid for it. Like, this is, there are so many better games on the Vive right now. All right, now that's it. Now, I feel like I've kind of betrayed VR for this particular review, but not every single game needs VR to make it special, okay? This seems like a perfect adaptation for mobile or just a standard game. However, for VR, they're not doing any of the things that make it special. Now, if they change things up, let me take control of one of those troops on the battlefields, let me actually fight with my sword or, you know, be an archer, then we can talk. Then we can actually say that this game adds some of those VR elements that make VR worth it. But as it is right now, I can't do it. That's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button below. If you didn't, hit the downvote button and tell me what I can do to make these videos better. And if you think that my review on this was wrong, please tell me how. What did I miss? What made this game special? And finally, here are the 9 winners of the giveaway that I talked about in the last video. I will take one last second to talk about the effort that that developer has put into the game since my review is phenomenal. He has gone through and he has addressed almost every one of my points. I'm not saying that it changes my recommendation to buy or not just yet. I want the single player to be a lot more, but as it is right now, huge props to that developer for what he's doing. So here are the winners of the 9 keys that I talked about. If you are one of these people, send me a message. Go to my About page on YouTube, click Send Message, and say, hey, I've won. And at that point, I can then message you back a key. Unfortunately, that's the only way that I can really make this happen. So you got to message me first so that I can message you. All right, guys. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye.